Hi, this is Ken from DZ Discs. In this video, I'm going to answer our most asked question. What do I get to start? I've never played before. It's all overwhelming. What discs do I get to start? So in this video, we're going to go over the very basics of flight numbers and what they mean. And then we have sample sets in each of the major brands, because you probably know what brand you want, maybe not, but we'll go over each of those and just a little bit about the plastics, just enough to get you started so you know how to choose your first set of discs. First, I'm going to kind of hold this up here. You'll see right at the bottom, you might not be able to read it, but there's some flight numbers there. All discs have 4 numbers associated with them. The first number is going to be the speed of the disc. The second number is the glide. The third number is called turn. And the fourth number is called fade. Let me kind of explain what these numbers mean in the most basic terms. Speed is how hard you have to throw the disc to get the disc to do what all the other numbers say. So the better your technique, the higher the number of the disc you normally throw when you're trying to throw for distance. At the beginning, throwing a high numbered disc is not good, because if you don't have the technique to get the power to throw it, it's not going to do what the numbers say, and it's going to cause that disc to crash and burn, to turn or roll over into the ground. You're not going to get the distance on it. It's better to start with the lowered numbered discs to start. That's with speed. Now, when I say power, I don't just mean how hard you throw it, but technique is more important than pure strength. You can do some things with strength, but I've seen players that don't have a lot of body strength, but they have the technique down, and they can really make a disc go a long ways. The second number is the glide. This is how much it just sort of floats in the air after you've accounted for the power that and technique you've put into it. How far does it just float for that distance? Now, as a beginning player, you probably want a fairly high glide so you can get your disc to go farther without all that technique. But you might not want a high glide if you're playing in high wind conditions, because the wind will tear it apart. It'll throw it all over the place with that glide. As a new player, don't really worry about the wind. Your technique is really what you're working on. So if you're playing on good days where you can learn from your technique, when there is not much wind, that's when you want to first start learning. So a high glide, that'll get you some longer throws. The third number is turn. This is how much the disc turns. Now, if I'm a right-handed and I'm throwing this disc, my turn goes off to the right. If I'm left-handed, it does the opposite. But if I'm right-handed, it'll turn. Now, if you have a disc that is too low a number for you, so you've got your technique down, what you're going to start seeing is the disc is turning more than the numbers show. It's going to be turning over. So when you start improving your technique, if you start seeing your disc turning over to the right with a good flight, and it's turning over more than it should, that's the time when you start stepping up the numbers and you go to a higher speed disc, because that disc is going to turn on you like this. And the last number is fade. All discs will fade at the end. This is when it loses power, it's coming out, and then it just sort of goes like this, tails off right at the end of its flight and goes into the ground. Some discs are going to fade a lot, and some discs not very much. As a beginning player, you want something that goes straight. That's what we always hear. I just want the disc to go straight. I'm not trying to do fancy hook it around a tree to one side or to the other. I just want to go straight. And yeah, that's good. You want to learn the basics first. You want to get distance and get it relatively straight. So most of these discs we have are going to have a fairly low turn and a fairly low fade. So like on this one here, which is a Valkyrie, it has a speed 9, glide 4, then it's a -2 on the turn and a 2 on the fade. So if you throw this perfect, you're going to see it sort of do a gentle S to one side, first to the right and then to the left, and end up about straight. And that's what you want. When you start seeing it turning a lot more, then you want to start going up to a higher number. This is speed 9. Go up to a 10 or maybe an 11 and slowly work your way up as you get your technique down. The last thing, as just sort of a general on these discs, is there are different plastics. There are expensive plastics that last a lot longer and inexpensive plastics that get beat up quicker. As a beginner, probably you want to use the beginning plastics, because as soon as you upgrade, you're not going to be throwing that first disc as much anymore. So this isn't a disc, this isn't a keeper. If you learn a lot, you're going to be switching out of these beginning discs pretty quick. So no reason to spend money on really expensive plastics. But you do have some options if you want to. You can get some more expensive plastics in all of these discs. Okay, so I'm going to use as an example here the dynamic discs. By the way, we have dynamic Latitude 64, Latitude 64 over here, Innova, and I also have some MVP discs here. So here's the dynamic. This is the breakout. This is an ideal starting disc as a driver. You want this to go far. The breakout is a speed 8, glide 5, so it's got a good deal of glide. It's got a turn 1 and a fade of 1.5. So, you know, a little bit of back and forth, but it's basically going to go straight. You throw this disc until you get it turning over on you. Once it's turning over, you start bumping up. Now, as you get into those higher numbers, we're not going to go too much into those. You're going to get more fade. It just happens. The higher speed discs have to have that. But as a beginning disc, this is a great starting driver. Then you go to your mid-range. Your mid-range is going to have numbers that are fairly similar to your driver, except the speed is going to be a lot lower. So you don't have to throw it as hard. It's a little bit more of a finesse disc. I like to think of these as discs that it's too far to putt, but I might still hit the chain. So I don't want to be using that driver with the real thin edge there and beating that up against the chain. So it's a little bit more of an accurate shot at a lower speed to get it to do what you want it to do. In the dynamic line here, I have the truth, which is speed. I don't have them memorized here. Speed 5, glide 5, then it's a -1 turn and a 1 fade. So pretty straight. It's affected by wind because it's got that 5 glide to it, but much slower speed, a little bit more of a finesse type shot. Your last disc is your putter. Now, putters are very similar. It has more to do with how it feels in your hand. This here is a judge. The judge is a speed 2, glide 4, has turn 0, and then a fade of just 0.5. So it's a really straight disc, the judge. But what you're going to see is, if you look at the edge, I'm going to hold that up, you can see a little bead right there. Now, when you're throwing this, that's what most players are looking at and figuring out which putter they want. Where does my finger go when I throw it? Some people are very comfortable having that bead because it gives them a place to put their finger right there. Other people don't like it as much. They like a different feel to these edges of the disc. So choose that a little bit. So that's the judge. Once again, that's a real good choice for a starting putter. So if you're looking to go with a dynamic, great starter package, breakout, truth, judge. Dynamic does have a bunch of other putters that are all the same number as the judge, just with different feel. And these are in the prime plastic, so a fairly lightweight, strong plastic. Now, I just said lightweight, and I want to be a little clear on this. All of your discs come in different weights. You can get lighter weight ones in the 150 gram, 160 gram range, or heavy ones that are between 170 and 175 gram. As a beginner, I say go ahead with a lighter weight disc. Go with something in the low 160s perhaps for your driver. The lightweight will be affected by wind. So if it's real windy, a lightweight disc isn't what you want. But as you're learning technique without the heavy wind, you're going to get a little bit more distance and have a little bit more fun with the lightweight discs. As you get more experienced, you might be going up into the heavier weight discs. The putters, that's a completely different story. Putters, you're going to want to get these between 170 175 gram. That's what they all are, or all should be, and be pretty consistent, because as you start practicing, you're going to you're going to finally figure out which putter you want, and you're going to get a whole bunch that are the exact same, and get the same weight as well, so that they all throw the same way each and every time, and you'll get better at your putting that way. Now there's a lot more about each one of these styles of disc, but this is just enough to kind of get you started in picking out your starter disc. The next one I'm going to go over my stack here of Innova. Innova is one of the oldest disc brands around. They had the patents on them, so for a long time it was only them out there. Everybody's familiar with these. They have their DX plastic, which is the most inexpensive plastic out there, and so they have some great starter discs. So here I'm going to start out with the Valkyrie. This is a Speed 9 disc. It has a glide of 4. A turn of -2, so it turns a little bit more than the breakout over here, and then a fade of 2. So in the end, if you throw this right, once again, it's going to do a gentle S and go pretty straight right to your target. Then in the middle, I've got a Leopard. This is about the same as the Valkyrie, except the speed's a lot lower. You can use this as, once again, your approach shot when you might hit the chain, you're too far away to putt. You can also use this as your driver when you're learning. If you're having a lot of trouble getting your disc to do what you want to do, go ahead and use this. When you go out and practice throwing, you can use both of these discs, throw them, see how they go. You're trying to get it to go level and then just do what the numbers say. So this is a slower speed disc, but numbers, yeah, the numbers are the exact same as the Valkyrie, except for the speed is lower. And then for the putter, we have the AVR. Now this is one of the most popular putters out there. Numbers on this is speed 2, glide 3, turn 0, fade 1, pretty straight. Kind of give you a look there at the bead. You can see you got a little of a bead there on the edge. I'm actually left-handed, so that's where my finger would go. But very, very popular putter there from Innova. Great starter set. You can get all of these in multiple plastics, but the DX is going to be the least expensive. Now, you'll often hear the word trilogy. Trilogy is a family of discs that are all associated with each other. This is Latitude 64, which is in the same family as the dynamic discs, but it's another set of options. And in this case, I've shown this in a little bit higher grade of plastic. So my driver here is the Jade. The Jade is a Speed 9. It has a lot of glide. This is a glide 6. So you can get this to go a ways. It's got a turn of -2, so it's going to turn off, and then a fade of 1, so it won't come back quite as much as it turns when you throw it right. The middle, your fairway driver, your approach shot, is a Fuse, Speed 5. Once again, higher glide on these. This is a glide 6. Turn again -2 with a fade of 1. This is the Fuse. And then we have one of their putters. This is the Mercy, Latitude 64 Mercy. Hold that right up there where you can see it. This has a Speed 2, glide 4, turn 0, and fade 1. So very similar with all their putters, but this is by Latitude 64. Kind of see it has a little bit of bead there. Different, like I said, different putters will have different amount of bead for your finger there. And then the last set we have here is by MVP. Now this is a little bit trickier setting up an MVP starter set because MVP doesn't make the cheap plastics. They make higher end stuff. So that made it a little bit more, a little bit tougher, but we pulled it off here. So here we have your driver. Here we have the Volt. It's a Speed 8, glide 5, turn -1, and fade 2. Very good starter disc. Now you can see they use their unique two-piece plastic here. They call it the gyro effect. So you have the colored rim on the outside and then the solid inside right there. Now for the middle disc, we have the Axis. This is a particular one. You can see through it right here. It's kind of a translucent. It does come in different plastics. But this is Speed 5, glide 5, -1 turn and 1 fade. So once again, very straight approach disc there for you. And then their putter, we got an atom. Now, I didn't talk about the different plastic on the putters and the hardness of the plastics, but this is a little bit stickier, a little bit easier to grip on it. Very, very flat on the top. The Atom is a speed 2, glide 3, but it has a turn of 0.5 and a fade of 0.5. This one pretty much goes straight unless you release it at an angle. If you throw this right, it goes straight right into your target. And then the last thing, I want to show you a couple other options just to switch it up. For example, in the Innova line, here's a beast. This beast here is speed 10, glide 5, -2 and 2. So this is like the driver that we showed you with Innova, but jumping up to a speed 10, just a little bit higher. If you find your technique is really good and you want to step it up just a little bit, this is a really good option here is for the beast. And the last two discs I want to show you are the Innova Rock and the Innova XT Nova. Now, there's a couple reasons for this. This Rock is a very popular disc. There's several different versions of it in disc golf. But this is the basic Innova Rock, speed 4, glide 4, turn 0, fade 3. So this one should go straight. It basically does what you want it to do, and at the end it falls off. Now, there's a reason for this disc. As a speed 4 disc, you also see it has a very narrow rim right here. If I was teaching a young kid how to play disc golf and I wanted to give him a disc, say he's 8, 9, 10 years old, this was a disc that I would be giving him to use. It has some of the natural flight characteristics of that fade on the end, but this narrow rim makes it a lot easier for a small hand to get a good grip on the disc, to get rotation and spin. So for the young players, this is an excellent disc to start out and learn to play. The Rock, they call it multi-purpose because you could putt with this, you can drive with this. I've had one in my basket for a long time, and pretty much any time I think that I can hit the chains, but I'm too far to putt, I'm using one of the Rocks. It's an excellent disc, great for the younger kids if you want to teach them to drive. They just don't have the strength and the body size to be throwing those speed 8, 9s, and 10s. So start them out with something like this. And the last one here is the Nova XT. Speed 2, so it's like a putter. Glide 3, like a putter, just a little bit of glide. But then it's a 0-0 for turn and fade. This disc does what you throw. It's not going to do anything different. Sometimes we call these a driving putter. If you said, hey, I just want to get one disc, something I can putt with, something I can drive with, and something that I can just learn the game, something like this is great. You're not going to be doing fancy hook shots, but if you throw this flat and level, this is going to fly flat and level. A lot of players will say, hey, if I were to do it back, start all over again and learn how to play, this is what I'd do. I'd get a disc like this, and this is all I would throw until I really learned how to throw well. I'm not going to be as competitive because I don't have the variety of discs. I don't have the putter and the driver, and maybe I don't have the range, but excellent for learning on. If you just had one disc, something like this right here. Okay, this was Ken from DZ Discs. I hope this wasn't too long, but this is the most popular question we have in our shop and online. People normally know, oh, I've heard of this brand, so I want to get this brand. But what discs do I get to start and why? And how do I know what to jump up to? And please, whatever you do, don't just get a high-speed disc because you go, I need to throw far, so let me get something really, really high speed, and that'll help me do it. No, it won't. That's how hard you have to throw it to get the disc to do what the numbers say. The last thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to have this down in the description, there's a great guy out there named Danny Lindahl who does a whole bunch of instructional videos. He has a whole YouTube channel. He can break down each step, so he'll have videos just on where your thumb goes, how you release it, He'll break down the steps of throwing these discs for everything you need to work on. He has great videos that you'll come back to time and time again as you learn how to throw your discs. So this is Ken from DZ Discs signing off, and we hope you enjoy the game of disc golf and you have a great experience purchasing your first set of discs.